Welcome to Texans On Tap, episode 16. I'm Brandon Strange alongside Charlie Palillo and Josh Jordan. Follow them on X at Palillo, at Josh Jordan 975, and read both of them on sportsmap.com. Jack Brain producing for us. To support this channel, all you have to do is hit like on the video, and that's it. It's pretty simple. Gents, the Bengals got off to a pretty inauspicious start, easy for me to say, starting at 1-3, but have since rattled off 4 wins in a row, and that includes Sunday's win over Buffalo to find themselves at 5-3. They are 7-point favorites over the Texans on Sunday. Joe Burrow had almost as many rushing yards himself than did the Texans on Sunday. The Texans defense has been pretty embattled, so how do they contain him, especially with so many question marks in the secondary?
Yeah, it's going to be a load. Burrow started the season on a gimpy knee, so he's been kind of a gathering storm, and you alluded to his ability to take off. You know, he's not a running quarterback, but he's a capable moving quarterback. The biggest problem is the Bengals' 1-2 punch of wide receivers, top 5 in the league, maybe top 3 in the league. There might be a handful who'd argue top 1 in the league. Jamar Chase is a flat-out superstar, and T. Higgins on the other side, capable third pass catcher in Tyler Boyd. I'm selling out against the pass, and if Joe Mixon goes off, fine. The Bengals are only averaging about 76 yards per game rushing. Mixon's under 4 yards per carry. If the Texans are going to get gashed like 2022 on the ground, well, then they're going to lose anyway. But however they want to scheme it, soft zone, bend but not break, and defend like mad in the red zone. I think it's just a very tough spot for the Texans defense, unless, and maybe touch upon this a little bit more as we unfurl this further, the Bengals maybe get caught in a little bit of a letdown spot, which could favor the Texans.
Yeah, they could. They have the Ravens after the Texans, so maybe they're looking ahead a little bit at that game. Maybe that benefits you in some way. What is nice is we're actually playing a team that's worse at rushing the football than the Texans. You wouldn't think that would be the case, but they are dead last, the Bengals, in running the ball, about 76 yards per game. So maybe that's something where you can't sell out on the pass game. And, and Mixon was a little banged up going into this last game. He didn't do a whole lot. So maybe that's something you could take advantage of. It's tough because they also have Boyd, another good receiver. I mean, as far as top 3 receivers, it doesn't get much better than the Bengals. Joe Burrow's getting healthy at the right time. And this is something he's been doing the last few years, that, kind of a slow start. And then once they get rolling, they are hard to stop. So I think it's going to be a tough game. Texans are underdogs by about 7 points. So this is one where and I guess what interesting too, going back to Ohio with CJ Stroud being your quarterback, I wonder how that kind of factors in, if he's going to have some family and stuff like that at the game.
Little picture, there's no such thing as house money. You're 4-4. You're within touch of Jacksonville in the division. You're 1 game behind the Bengals and a whole bunch of teams in the wild card standings right now. And the Bengals 5-3, part of a 3-way tie for second or last, depending on how you want to view it in the AFC North, with Baltimore setting the pace. And it's not like the Bengals are so good that beating them in Cincinnati would require a miracle. But I do think this is a tough spot. The Bengals seem to have it going. That Baltimore game at Baltimore, they lost at home early, so that is a huge game, a vastly more important game to the Bengals than the Texans game. It's also a quick turnaround. That's the Thursday night game next week, and they play the Steelers the week after that. But at 5-3, the Bengals shouldn't be thinking, well, this is a layup. We're 6-3 going into those 2 division games. So, a little picture, no such thing as house money, but big picture or bigger picture, if the Texans go win in Cincinnati, oh my gosh. I mean, this is one, whether in August or now, if you're going win, loss, it goes in the L column. Come home, beat Arizona, you're 5-5, and then you see what you have when the Jaguars are here. Win that, you're in the playoff race, the division race. If not, well, maybe you make a run at 8-9 wins, which would be a hell of a first season for the D'Amico CJ parlay.
Yeah, I think you just have to hope for a stinker from the Bengals, and that happens from time to time. I know Burrow's healthier now, but they lost to the Tennessee Titans 27-3. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Texans ride this momentum here and play the Bengals really tough. And, but you do worry, is it going to play out like these last several games where Burrow's got the ball, driving down the field with hardly any time left, and they get that field goal and put you to sleep there. That concerns me a little bit because Burrow can do that as well as anybody. But what's nice with the Texans now is you have one of those quarterbacks too. If you leave him too much time, he can go get that game and win it for you. So finally, as Texans fans, I feel better about Stroud than even Deshaun. And I mean, anybody else, Schaub, I like what I'm seeing here. This is a guy, he will go rip your heart out of your chest if you give him enough time. So I'd like to see him do it coming this Sunday.
This is a game where if the Texans win it, I will, as a dart at the board, say they have a defensive score or a special team score. I just think offense, defense, as you match it up on the road, the Bengals are the better team. But those things you can't specifically account for ahead of time. Turnovers, especially special teams play, a block punt, something like that. And those things do happen. Part of why upsets do happen. But this would be a pretty notable upset. Not a shock the world upset, but a pretty notable upset if the Texans pull this off on Sunday.
The Texans have pulled off some improbable wins, though. It is worth mentioning because they have beaten the Jags and Steelers pretty handily. Do you expect to see any sort of offensive adjustments versus Cincy that comes out of maybe things that are learned, lessons learned coming out of the Bucs game? What do you expect to see maybe differently with CJ? More throwing on first down, for example?
Well, pick up where you left off. Pretty much acknowledge we can't run the ball, so we're going to throw it, and then we're going to throw it some more, and when we're done doing that, we're going to throw it some more. The Bengals don't have an elite pass rusher. Ex-Texan DJ Reader still plugging away quite nicely in the interior of that line. But yeah, I don't think there's any wheel to reinvent what the Texans are going to be. The Bengals way back when had a quarterback who was a bust. They drafted in the first round of Washington State. His name was Jack Thompson. His nickname was the Throwin' Samoan. So one of you have to come up with a rhyme that works for the Texans. But in Cincinnati, it'll be the Throwin' Stroud. That's terrible. You have to do better than that, but you're going to wing it all over the lot against them, I think.
And that could benefit the Bengals. They are second in the NFL in interceptions. They have 11 of them already this year. So that's something to watch. But as far as total yards against per game, they're 27th. So really near the bottom there. 364 yards a game they give up. Rushing yards against per game, they're 27th. They give up about 130 rushing yards a game. It's just the Texans can't seem to run the ball, but the matchup actually looks pretty good. But we saw that with the Carolina matchup. That was just a beautiful matchup. Texans were ready to just run the ball like crazy, and it did not work at all. So I think they're going to have to be flexible, even though a team may not be good at something. You might be even worse at what you're trying to do. So yeah, I think they're going to have to throw it all over the yard and hope CJ can take care of business. They're middle of the pack as far as sacks. So hopefully CJ will have some time to throw.
I don't like to talk moral victories per se, but reality is and the Texans are going through a lot of injury issues right now. Yeah. They're just not as good personnel wise as maybe the Bengals are. I mean, obviously they've got it where it counts in the quarterback position now that we've all seen that. But what do we want to see out of the Texans, even in a loss, that would make you still feel encouraged of the results versus Cincinnati?
I think it's as simple as if you play a solid, competitive four-quarter game on the road against a playoff team, a Super Bowl appearance team a couple of years ago, there are going to be steps back. And if you just go get beaten by a better team, I mean, it's not okay in the standings, but it's okay in the broader development of the team than going out and laying an egg like at Carolina.
Yeah, you just want to see the continued development, especially with Tank Dell and Nico Collins, just CJ getting them the ball. I think Dalton Schultz was a big difference in this past game. He almost had 2 touchdowns against the Bucs. And if we remember back to that Carolina game, before that, he was really taken off. And then that Carolina game, he had 2 catches for 5 yards, just completely disappeared, goes over 100 against the Bucs and has the score. So I want to see him continue, be a part of the passing attack. I think that's going to be big for those guys. And D'Amico, I really liked how he managed the end of the Bucs game where they still had 2 timeouts. They, threw to the middle of the field twice, took timeouts immediately, kept as much time on the clock as possible, and they finished that off. So I'd like to see D'Amico. It looks like he's good with this game management and, his uses of timeouts, which we haven't seen a lot of that as Texans fans over the years. So it's definitely encouraging.
No, he definitely picked it up where Kubiak and many others following him have struggled as far as time management as a coach. Speaking of moral victories, I guess that turned into actual victories was, you mentioned Dalton Schultz. And I know this isn't the recap episode, but I just loved the fact that D'Amico, following Schultz's unfortunate fumble, went back to Schultz immediately and targeted him just to say, hey, we still have confidence in you. And that's the kind of coaching that really instills in players that confidence that gets results on the field. Again, this isn't the recap episode, but I just thought that was worth shouting out because just really awesome on the part of D'Amico Ryans and CJ to have trust in him to show him you're still the guy for us, or still one of the guys. Well, now's the time in the show we always give, I'll put you guys on the spot and ask for predictions. So give me a final score for Texans going into Cincinnati on Sunday.
Well, as the Bengals have won 4 in a row, they have not given up more than 20 points in any of those games, and that includes facing the 49ers and the Bills in the last 2 of them. I'll nudge the Texans over 20, but think they do get outscored in this one. The line is 7, so I don't want to pick on the number. I'll go Bengals 34, Texans 24.
Go Bengals 31, Texans 24.
There you go. Well, that's it for Texans on Tap. We'll be back next week to recap this game and hopefully talk about a Texans team that's finally above that 500 mark. Thanks for listening, and go Texans.